You did not stumble upon this video by accident. This is not a coincidence. Perhaps you have already stepped across another timeline without even realizing it. Try to remember. Have you ever woken up from a dream, your heart still racing, and in those first few seconds, you weren't sure where you were? A strange room that felt uncannily familiar. A city you've never set foot in. Yet as you walked its streets in the dream, you felt as though you had lived there your whole life. Or perhaps you saw a loved one who had long passed away. But in the dream, they stood before you, holding your hand, speaking words so real that you awoke with tears in your eyes. These are not ordinary fragmented dreams. They are sharp, vivid, filled with detail, so much so that you could describe each wall, each scent, even the sound of the wind passing through windows. They do not fade the moment you wake. On the contrary, they cling to you, haunt you throughout the day, as if they were not dreams at all, but memories. So the question is, whose memories are they? Where do they come from? Are they just random fabrications of the mind? Or are they truly traces from another life, a timeline you slipped into while asleep? Throughout history, humans have asked these very questions. Ancient philosophers, spiritual masters, and even modern scientists have all touched upon the idea that dreams are not merely products of the brain. They may be doors. And behind those doors lies another world, another timeline, another version of you. Today, we will step into that journey. We will explore dreams so real they cannot be dismissed as illusions. The signs that you may have slipped into another timeline while dreaming. The ancient cultural beliefs that view dreams as gateways to other realms. And the modern quantum theories that suggest your consciousness is never confined to a single reality. If you are watching this video, perhaps you too have had such dreams. And this is not by chance. This may be a reminder that you are different, that your consciousness has already touched layers of parallel realities most people will never know. So the question for you is this: when you dream of another life, will you dare to believe that it truly is you, living, breathing, experiencing in another timeline? There are dreams that, upon waking, you can almost brush off with ease. Faint, fragmented memories, as if the brain were merely sweeping away the day's chaotic data. But then, there are other dreams, etched deep, like the touch of a parallel reality. These dreams are so vivid that you can recall every detail. The color of the walls, the scent in the air, the sound of footsteps echoing in the hallway, even the sharp chill of your hand against the door. They are nothing like the usual, disordered dreams. They feel like memories. Memories of another life you just lived. When you wake, you may sit in silence for hours, haunted by the question, did I just dream? Or did I truly return from somewhere else? That question is not easy to answer, because the vividness of the dream far surpasses any nighttime illusion you've ever known. Many people have said they dreamed of living in a completely foreign city, yet one so strangely familiar, as if they had been born and raised there. They recall every street, every shop, every face that passed by, and the sense of familiarity lingers all day. How could the brain's random creation produce a world with such detail? Neuroscientists often explain it as an odd fusion of subconscious memories, the brain stitching fragments into a picture. But for those who have experienced it, such an explanation feels too simple, too cold. Because the experience is not just imagery, it is presence. You don't just see, you live inside it, as though your consciousness had truly stepped out of this timeline and slipped into another. Imagine waking up and remembering that you had another family, another house, another life. You know the name of the spouse in that dream, You remember the faces of children who do not exist here, and even the memories you are certain you never had. The emptiness after waking feels like losing a life you once had. It unsettles you. If it was all just a dream, then why does my heart ache for real? Why does the longing hurt so deeply? Dreams that are too real to be illusions often arrive without warning. They follow no normal logic. Yet strangely, they leave behind a lasting mark on the mind, a restless urge to search for answers. And here, the quantum perspective opens another possibility. Perhaps those dreams are not fake at all. Perhaps they are doors, cracks, where your consciousness slips free from the physical boundaries of this timeline to touch another. In quantum mechanics, the many worlds interpretation suggests that every possibility exists in parallel, in different universes. There is another you living another life. Cities you've never visited here, but which exist in a parallel reality. When you dream, the boundary between these layers of reality thins, and sometimes you slip into the overlap. That is why the dream feels so real. Because you are not imagining. You are actually there. In many cultures, such dreams were never dismissed lightly. The ancient Greeks believed that some dreams were divine, visits of the soul to another world. Tibetans regard lucid dreaming as a form of spiritual travel, where consciousness escapes the body to step into realms beyond reality. Across religions and traditions, separated by thousands of miles, a shared belief emerges. There are dreams that are not dreams, but experiences. So when you lie down and wake with the feeling of having just left another world, think again. Perhaps it was not just the brain's chaotic activity. Perhaps it was the moment you slipped into a parallel timeline, bringing back the memories of another life. Have you ever woken up from a dream carrying the strange sensation that you had just lived an entirely different life? Not fragmented, illogical pieces, but a life with structure, with relationships, with memories that do not belong to this present reality. That is when you begin to wonder, could this be a sign that you just crossed into another timeline? One of the clearest signs is experiencing an entire different life within the dream. You do not just dream of a moment, but of a whole system of existence. A job, a family, a home. Even the small details, like the familiar corner of a desk where you always sit to read. Those memories do not exist in this reality. But in the dream, they flow seamlessly as if you had lived with them for many years. Upon waking, the sense of loss weighs heavily on you, as though someone had just erased a piece of your life that once was. Another frequent sign is stepping into a place that does not exist in this reality. You may dream of a strange house, a hallway that seems to stretch endlessly, or a city you have never heard of. What haunts you is the chilling familiarity. You know exactly where each street will turn. You remember the tiniest details as though you had walked there thousands of times. But when you wake, you realize that place does not exist anywhere on this world's map. There are also dreams in which you meet loved ones who have passed away. The embrace, the voice, the eyes, everything is so clear that you cannot dismiss it as an illusion. It no longer feels like dreaming of them, but as if you truly reunited. For many, this becomes a life-altering experience. Perhaps in another timeline, that loved one still exists. And the dream is simply the bridge connecting the two worlds. Another particular sign is the strange familiarity with something entirely foreign. You enter a building you have never seen in waking life, yet in the dream, you know every room. You meet a stranger, yet feel you've known them your whole life. That paradoxical sensation of being both strange and familiar makes you wonder, why do I know something I have never experienced? Many call this déjà rêvé, like déjà vu, but occurring in dreams. The recognition that what you dreamed was not random, but a glimpse into the memory of another timeline. And perhaps most striking of all is when the dream breaks the familiar rules of physics. A clock running backwards, the moon hovering directly before you, or a staircase that leads you endlessly yet never reaches an end. Normally, even in dreams, our brains borrow the laws of reality to structure them. But when you encounter an entirely different system of rules, perfectly logical yet not belonging to this world, it may be a sign you have entered another timeline, a parallel reality with its own set of laws. These signs are often accompanied by a powerful feeling. I belong here. It is not merely a fleeting dream, but a reminder that some part of you, or another version of you, is alive in that timeline. And in the moment of dreaming, those two versions overlap, allowing you to bring fragments of memory back with you. So, if one night you wake with the haunting sense that you just lost another life, if you recall in detail a city that does not exist, if you embrace someone who has passed and feel them as though they were truly here, do not be so quick to dismiss it as the brain's trickery, because perhaps that was the moment you truly slipped into another timeline, and the dream is the only evidence you brought back from that journey. Since ancient times, humanity has never regarded dreams merely as chaotic streams of images in the mind. On the contrary, dreams were always seen as doors, as journeys into another world. When we look back at the great cultural traditions, we see that the concept of slipping timelines has always been hidden within the way they interpreted dreams. In Tibet, monks practiced dream yoga. Dreams were not simply a playground for the mind, but a training ground to transcend the boundary of life and death. They believed that in dreams, humans step into the bardo, the intermediate state, the space between lifetimes. Within this space, realities intertwine, timelines overlap, and the dreamer can see another life of themselves. The dream is not an illusion, but proof that consciousness can surpass the limits of the physical body. In ancient Greece, people went to temples of Asclepius, the god of healing, to sleep within and await guiding dreams. They called this practice incubatio, an ancient ritual where dreams were not merely messages, but gateways into sacred space. In the dream, they believed they entered a parallel reality where the gods could heal and give counsel. For the Greeks, dreaming was not just a reflection of the mind, it was direct contact with another dimension, a timeline where the rules of the universe were different. For the South American tribes, especially those living with the Amazon rainforest, dreams were regarded as a dreamscape, a truly existing realm where human souls travel each night. Shamans, the spiritual guides, did not only recount their dreams, but also led the community to enter the same dream space. For them, dreams were a form of soul journeying, a slip into another layer of reality, where ancestors and animal spirits awaited. There, dreams became the bridge connecting the timeline of the living with the timeline of the spirit world. Even Eastern philosophy carried this secret. Zhuangzi, the Chinese sage, once exclaimed, "Did I dream I was a butterfly? Or is the butterfly dreaming it is me?" A question that seemed simple, yet shook the foundation of perception. What is real and what is dream? Or more precisely, which reality is the timeline to which we truly belong? In that contemplation, he touched the essence of quantum reality. Perhaps both the man and the butterfly exist only in different timelines, and the dream is the moment the two realities intersect. In ancient Egypt, dreams were seen as doors to communicate with the gods. Egyptians believed that when asleep, the soul left the body and entered the duat, the afterlife realm, where timelines intertwined. In the surviving carvings, they describe dreams too real to deny, as though those very dreams were proof that human consciousness can never be imprisoned within a single reality. What is the common thread among all these cultures? They all viewed dreams as journeys, as crossings, transcending boundaries. Whether they called it bardo, dreamscape, duat, or a parallel timeline, the core remains the same. Dreams open a door, allowing humans to slip into another reality. Through the modern lens, it may be easy to dismiss this as mystical belief. But placed alongside today's quantum ideas that countless worlds exist simultaneously, that consciousness can resonate with another timeline. Perhaps those ancient beliefs were never mere mythology. They may have been humanity's way, long before the concept of quantum physics, of sensing and decoding the experience, of slipping timelines in dreams. So when you dream of another life, a strange city, or a departed loved one, remember that you are not alone. You are continuing a tradition that has existed for thousands of years, a tradition that views dreams as mirrors reflecting parallel timelines. And perhaps, in dreams, you are reliving the very moment our ancestors once called walking through another world. Let us pose a question. What makes us so certain that only this single reality exists? The answer seems obvious. But with quantum physics, things become far more complicated. Scientists have suggested that the universe is not singular. On the contrary, there may be countless timelines existing simultaneously, and the one we are living now is only one among them. In quantum mechanics, there is a famous hypothesis, the many worlds interpretation. According to this view, each time an event occurs, the universe does not select a single outcome. Instead, every possible outcome happens, only within different timelines. When you flip a coin, it does not simply land heads or tails. Both outcomes exist, but in separate timelines. This means there are countless versions of you, each one living a different storyline of life. So how do dreams relate to this? In the dream state, your consciousness is no longer tightly bound to the familiar logic of space-time. Brainwaves slow down. Neural activity oscillates in theta and delta frequencies, a state that almost opens a door for consciousness to slip free from the main broadcast channel of reality. Some researchers of consciousness have suggested that it is precisely in these moments that we may tune in to another timeline, much like a radio accidentally locking onto the frequency of a distant station. Imagine this. You dream of walking through a city you have never known, yet it feels deeply familiar. You recall each detail clearly: the brick walls, the echo of footsteps, the light reflected through glass windows. These details are so vivid that it seems unlikely your mind simply fabricated them all. Could it be that, in that very moment, you slipped out of this familiar timeline and stepped into another version of reality? Some physicists emphasize that in the quantum world, particles can exist in multiple states at once, a phenomenon called superposition. Only when an observation takes place does the particle choose a specific state. This opens the door to a bold hypothesis. Dreams may be the very moment when our consciousness observes another timeline. Dreams do not create that reality, they simply open a crack, letting us glimpse a fragment of it. Another phenomenon in quantum physics is entanglement. Two particles can remain linked even when separated by billions of light years. A change in one instantly affects the other, as though space and time are no longer barriers. Now consider the phenomenon of shared dreams, multiple strangers dreaming of the same place that does not exist in waking life. Could it be that their consciousness, in the dream state, became entangled with the same quantum information field? That they were not merely dreaming individually, but simultaneously crossing realities into the same intersection point of timelines. When you dream of it, perhaps you have stepped into the overlap between the old timeline and the new. Notice, in dreams, you do not just see images, you feel. You hear sounds, you touch surfaces, you even have memories as though you have lived there before. And that is the strange part. Dreams carry the qualities of memory, something that should only exist in the timeline you currently inhabit. But if consciousness truly has crossed realities, then those memories may belong to another version of you, living in a parallel timeline. Science has not yet proven with certainty that dreams are journeys into other timelines. But more and more, the fragments between ancient mythologies and modern quantum hypotheses align in uncanny ways. The Tibetans called it bardo, the Greeks called it sacred space, and quantum physics calls it many worlds. All point toward the same idea. We are not locked into a single reality. We can slip, we can stray, we can awaken in another world, even if we call it by the familiar name, dream. If quantum theory opens the possibility of many parallel worlds, then human experience itself provides fragments suggesting that perhaps we have, at times, accidentally stepped into another world through dreams. Think of the phenomenon psychologists call shared dreams. There are cases where completely unrelated people, living in different places, never having met, nonetheless describe the same dream. They find themselves walking through an endless corridor with pale yellow walls, flickering fluorescent lights, a space that does not exist in waking life, yet appears in the dream memories of many people. How could this be mere coincidence? On dream forums, thousands of accounts have been recorded. One person dreams of a nameless city with winding curved streets and buildings that feel both familiar and strange. Another, living halfway across the world, describes nearly the same thing. This uncanny overlap leads many to believe they were not dreaming individually, but had touched the same information field where another timeline exists in parallel. And it is not only shared dreams, but also personal experiences so powerful that the dreamer becomes convinced they truly lived another life. Imagine, you wake up and recall clearly that last night you lived in a strange apartment. You had a different job, different friends, even a different family. The sensation is not vague, but like a real memory. You remember the wall colors, the placement of furniture, even tiny details your mind should struggle to invent. And then, in waking life, you realize that place does not exist. There are even more astonishing reports. Some people recount dreaming of concepts, details, or information they had never known before. After waking, they research and discover that the information was true. For example, a person dreams of speaking in a strange language, wakes up and finds that it is a rare language that really exists. If dreams are only products of the brain, how can this be explained? But if it is a slip of timelines, perhaps they had passed through another life, one in which that skill belonged to them. This calls to mind the concept of quantum entanglement. If two particles can remain connected and instantly affect one another, even when separated by infinite distance, then why couldn't human consciousness, also quantum in nature, connect into the same field and simultaneously dream of a shared world? Shared dreams, then, are not random, but the resonance of consciousness with a universal information field. One striking detail: those who have experienced shared dreams or dream lives vivid enough to haunt them often describe that the feeling upon waking is unlike any other dream. It leaves a lingering resonance, sometimes lasting all day, sometimes remembered vividly even years later. They often wonder, Why do I feel familiarity with a place I've never been? Why do I feel attachment to people who don't exist in this reality? These very questions are signs that perhaps the dream did not unfold only within their brain, but within another timeline, where they are also living as a different version of themselves. If we connect all these phenomena, shared dreams, vivid dream lives, memories from other lives, a thread emerges. Dreams are sometimes the bridges that allow us to cross realities. When you dream of living in a place that does not exist, meeting strangers who feel familiar, or sharing the same dream with someone far away, perhaps that was the moment you slipped out of the familiar timeline and stepped into another, into a reality the waking mind cannot grasp, but the dreaming consciousness can. The strangest thing about the phenomenon of slipping timelines in dreams is this: not everyone has it. If dreams were simply random activity of the brain, then why is it that only a small number of people have dreams so vivid they become convinced they just lived another life? Why do most only recall fragments, while some step into entire parallel worlds? Dream researchers have noticed that the group of people who often experience lucid dreams are also the group most likely to encounter such experiences. They do not just dream, they are aware they are dreaming, even able to control parts of the dream. This is a sign of an extremely sensitive mind, one capable of keeping consciousness from switching off completely while the body sleeps. And this very sensitivity might be the key to unlocking the ability to slip timelines. From a quantum perspective, there is a concept called coherence, a state of being in phase. When particles are in coherence, they connect more strongly and more stably. If we apply this metaphor to consciousness, we could say those who slip easily are the ones whose awareness maintains better coherence with the quantum field. Their consciousness functions like a finely tuned antenna, picking up signals more strongly, more synchronously with the quantum field. Thanks to this, when dreaming, they can more easily slip into another reality that most people cannot reach. These individuals often share certain traits. They are more sensitive to their surroundings, easily affected by sound, light, or the emotions of others. They have strong intuition, sometimes predicting events, or frequently experiencing déjà vu. Some have even reported prophetic dreams, dreams that foreshadow future events. If we regard dreams as doors into other timelines, then perhaps this very openness allows them to cross ordinary boundaries more easily. But why do most people not experience this? It may be because the majority of us are hardened in the perception of the current timeline. We believe there is only one reality, and the brain is programmed to preserve that stability. The vague, fragmented dreams most people have may be nothing more than memory processing in the brain. But for the rare, sensitive antennas, they are not only processing memory, they are also picking up signals from another dimension. One notable detail: many people who have slipped timelines describe that in dreams, they did not try to make it happen. It occurs naturally, suddenly, as though a crack in reality had just opened and their awareness accidentally slipped through. This recalls the idea of overlapping zones in parallel universes. If countless timelines exist simultaneously, there must be points of intersection, like layers of waves interfering with one another. Sensitive individuals, in a high coherent state, are easily swept through these intersections in their dreams. Another aspect that cannot be ignored: the spiritual dimension. In many traditions, those with the ability to see further are regarded as old souls, carrying a distinct frequency. In South America, shamans believe only the chosen can travel through the dreamscape. In Tibet, not everyone can enter the bardo, only practitioners who have cultivated awareness to a high level. This coincides, interestingly, with the quantum explanation Not all systems achieve coherence, only a few do. Thus, the difference lies in the sensitivity and openness of consciousness. For most, dreams are just dreams, but for the few, they are doors. They do not randomly see other lives or non-existent cities. Perhaps they are invisible travelers, carrying within them the ability to cross the boundaries of reality without realizing it. And if you are among the few, then you are not ordinary. You carry within you a living quantum antenna, connecting you with many layers of parallel realities. If a dream can leave you bewildered for an entire day, asking, "Where was I just now? Why did that place feel so real?" then perhaps that dream was not merely a random product of the mind. It might be a trace, a fleeting memory from another timeline into which your consciousness had just stepped. The deepest meaning of this phenomenon is this: reality is not fixed. We are often taught that the universe has only one timeline, one single reality, and that everything unfolds through linear cause and effect. But if a dream can take you into a place that does not exist here, and yet feels as real as waking life, then it is like a small crack in the wall of reality, a fissure revealing that beyond it lie countless parallel worlds, countless timelines flowing side by side. And you, even if only for a moment, have wandered into one of them. In many philosophies, dreams have always been regarded as a form of other truth. When Zhuangzi dreamed he was a butterfly, he could no longer be sure. Which was real? Tibetans believe dreams open the door into Bardo, the intermediate state where the soul passes through layers of reality. For South American shamans, the dream is a parallel land where one may meet ancestors, spirits, or even other versions of oneself. All these beliefs converge on the same point. Dreams are not just illusions, they are doors. Through the quantum lens, consciousness appears as something not bound to a single timeline. The many worlds, interpretation suggests that countless versions of you are living different lives across parallel realities. And each time you slip timelines in a dream, you are not merely imagining another life. You are actually brushing against that other self of yours. Another you, living in another place, within a completely different chain of events. So what does this say about you? It reminds you that you are not confined to one single life. You do not possess only one fixed reality that repeats day after day. You, your consciousness, are far more vast and multidimensional than you have ever believed. Each slip of the timeline in dreams might be the universe's reminder that you have more possibilities, more paths, more potential to choose from. Some view this phenomenon as a sign of awakening consciousness. For only when awareness opens enough do you realize that such a dream could not simply be a dream. Only then do you dare to ask, if it felt that real, why do I dismiss it? And that very question, even without an immediate answer, shifts the way you perceive life itself. Perhaps slipping timelines is not merely a strange experience in dreams, but a subtle reminder. Reality itself is an infinite network, and we are travelers within it. Each vivid dream, each moment of waking confusion may be nothing less than the trace of a parallel journey that has just occurred. And if so, then its deeper meaning is this: you are not imprisoned in a single version of yourself. You are multi-layered, multi-dimensional, and dreams are but the mirror reflecting those lives. When you awaken, you may continue your ordinary life, but somewhere in another timeline, another version of you is also remembering you as a dream. If one morning you wake up, your mind still spinning from what just unfolded in your dream, if the image of a strange room, a neighborhood that never existed, or a loved one long gone lingers so vividly that it unsettles you throughout the entire day, then remember, Perhaps it was not a random dream. Perhaps it was the moment you just slipped into another timeline. That dream did not come to you only to dissolve like mist. It stayed. It clung to you. It reminded you that this reality is not absolute. That the world you live in is only one among countless parallel timelines, and you somehow touched upon another branch of yourself. In ancient cultures, such experiences were regarded as messages from other realms, whispers from ancestors, or signs of spiritual transformation. Through the lens of quantum science, we might call it coherence, when your consciousness aligns strongly enough to pierce the boundary between timelines. Yet no matter what language we use, the truth remains. Not everyone dreams this way. And if you are one of those who does, you carry within you something different. Consider this. If in dreams you can step through a door into another world, who can say that in waking life you cannot do the same? Perhaps every dream is only a rehearsal. Every slip of the timeline is a reminder that you are greater than you think, that your consciousness is not imprisoned within a single frame. If you have ever woken from a dream that left you unsettled all day, this is the reason. You just walked out of another timeline. So what about you? Have you ever had a dream that convinced you you had just lived in another reality? And if you have, would you dare to treat it as a true memory? Share it, because perhaps you are not the only one who has just slipped timelines in a dream.